In mid-October 2025, a quiet room in Accra made history. During an international summit on pre-colonial Africa, a Liberian scholar unrolled an old map drawn in the late 18th century, long before empires divided the continent. The map showed vast gold networks across West Africa, but what stunned everyone was that the locations matched the sites mined by American companies during the Cold War. 3 days later, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso stood before the summit and said, "If gold was taken from us without consent, then we have the right to demand its return." It was not a speech, it was a declaration. A political line was crossed, and it did not stop there. Burkina Faso sent a formal request to the United Nations asking for an audit of all gold exported from West Africa by American firms between 1950 and 1975, and called for reparations. The White House rejected the claim as baseless, but across the global South a new phrase began to echo: justice for African gold. Traoré was not just recalling history, he was putting a price on it. The fallout was immediate. Hours after the demand reached the UN, the American embassy in Ouagadougou requested an urgent meeting. Washington officials called it a distortion of history, but in the streets of West Africa, people were not debating legality. They were talking about courage. For decades, gold had left their soil and vanished into foreign vaults. Now, for the first time, an African leader was not asking politely, he was demanding accountability. U.S. analysts confirmed that 6 multinational companies based in New York and Denver had operated in West Africa under Cold War contracts with almost no local oversight. It had been legal then, but those standards were now being questioned under modern global ethics. Traoré did not stop at the UN. He contacted Mali, Ghana, and Liberia, proposing a joint African Commission on Historical Resource Repatriation. Within a week, 3 nations agreed. The backlash grew stronger. Western media called Traoré a populist, and some politicians demanded sanctions. But in Harlem, in Chicago, and in Sao Paulo, murals appeared overnight with his face beside the words, "We remember everything." Inside the African Union in Addis Ababa, diplomats quietly discussed supporting Traoré's claim as a pan-African precedent. This was not about money. It was about decolonizing memory itself. By the 3rd week of October, the story had gone global. Then came a leak. A former employee of the U.S. Geological Survey released secret Cold War mining reports showing that American agencies had transported raw gold to New York under covert extraction programs. The documents dated back to 1963. One memo described gold shipments as economic stabilizers to counter Soviet influence. The leak ignited a fire in Burkina Faso. Traoré addressed his nation live. Behind him was a projection of the leaked memo. He did not shout. He simply asked, "How much longer must we pay for the silence that bought someone else's strength?" Delegates from Brazil, Algeria, and Vietnam supported a UN motion for inquiry. France abstained. The United Kingdom opposed. The United States vetoed. But the moral ground was shifting. Academics from Yale, Oxford, and the University of Cape Town wrote an open letter saying gold extracted under coercion is not trade. It is theft in slow motion. On African social media, a new phrase trended: stolen weight, meaning both the gold and the burden of history. Yet threats soon appeared. Diplomatic pressure increased. Aid talks froze. Traoré remained firm. He called a special summit in Ouagadougou, inviting nations with similar colonial grievances. His message was clear: you do not have to wait for the powerful to validate your pain. Before we continue, take a moment to like, share, and comment on this story because this truth deserves to reach every corner of the world, and your voice helps make it happen. Now let's move forward.